And literally every idea up there kind of is born in that spirit. It's not about, you know, how can we sell this or what's the release date. It's always about wouldn't it be cool if. And I always feel like I've kind of never left that 10-year-old backyard playground in a way when we're working together.
That must be why the films are so successful and they work so well because of that. You know, because you don't go, it's not a marketing research thing maybe that this is going to sell. It's more coming from you guys.
It's hard. Trust me, we didn't do market research when we made Up. The audience wants to see an old guy who loses his wife and his home.
And Ratatouille. You know?
Yeah. Right in the kitchen.
You guys mentioned before.
I mean, and not to downplay those other things, they're important as well, marketing and all of that. Sure. But still, the inception is always this kind of really pure, fun idea that just gets thrown out.
And usually it's the heart or the mind of the director, because we like to call ourselves basically a director-driven studio, where the director's vision, and then everybody gets on board with that vision. When Pete was talking about it, I remember people going, I want to work on that. That sounds really cool. And then you get these people that sort of all want to work on that film with that director, which is cool. So everybody gets to put their little fingerprint on it and have their little part in it, which is really, you know, we're just excited to sort of tell those stories.
And marketing, I might add, another one of your careers.
Yeah, that's where I started actually, in marketing and PR, working at Disney. I started at Universal, right out of college, got a job working in PR as an internship. And I remember going there for this internship and interviewing and thinking like, oh man, literally the elevator doors opened and there was a poster of E.T. And I thought, oh my God, like I've come to the place I need to be, you know? So I got this internship there, I learned a lot, and then I moved over to Disney across the street not long, about a year later. And then Disney moved me out to LA to work at the Burbank Studios. But I learned so much in marketing, which really helped me with what I do now. You know, at the time I was thinking, God, I can't wait to get to do what I really want to do. But, you know, without all that time spent doing those other jobs, I don't think I would be nearly as proficient or organized or as, you know, at what I'm doing now. So it really did help.
Well, if you saw Michael's presentation, you saw his acting in his childhood Super 8 films.
Yeah.
And speaking of acting, Jonas has an exciting acting career as one of the characters in Cars. Does anybody know which one that is?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess not.
What's this? Everybody loves Booth.
Yeah.
So the truth is, you know, when we put these things together on a story reel, we make the movie 10 or 15 times, and we do all the voices ourselves at Pixar, so we call it scratch vocals. So we'll go into the recording studio and we'll perform the part. It's basically who's standing closest to the room, just to get in there and do it. And I'm a horrible actor, and Boost, they just needed, I don't know, this Jonathan, be a tough guy, so I don't even remember. You were in there.
I was in the room when he was
doing
it.
And so it was meant to be, someday we'll recast it. Of course, you run out of time when you make these movies, and I remember John, I was a production manager, so I had to recuse myself from the decision. I remember John said, Joseph's fine, I'll leave him in there. Cool.
Yeah, it's fun line. Yeah, so what was it?
The line I had was, we got ourselves another. Of course, McQueen's falling asleep. Max falling asleep. That's me. So that's. And then I love that I worked 5 years on Cars, and I probably worked about 15 minutes on Boost, and people go, "Oh, you did Boost." Yeah. But there it is. Yeah.
Well, let's see. Now, I do have some more exciting questions here. Let's see. This is going to be weird, probably. But is there a favorite Pixar moment that you've got? I mean, there's so many great Pixar moments and classic moments. Is there any strange Pixar moment that you just love? That there probably is, because there's probably something you know inside stories about. You can share with us.
And there's countless. There's always something strange going on there.
More matters which ones can we share.
You know, one of my favorite moments. Yeah, it was that. It wasn't so much a moment, but one of the things we do on these films is we do a ton of research. Whether it's, you know, the group that did Ratatouille spent a lot of time in Paris, and even when we did Up, we sent a group to the Tepuis in South America. But the best time I ever had was when we worked on Cars, first Cars. We took a bunch of us and we went down Route 66. Yeah, it was great. We hired this guy, Michael Wallace, who ended up being a voice of the sheriff in the film. And he's this old Tulsa, Oklahoma cowboy, author, historian. And he drove us in a couple of Cadillacs down all the way to Route 66, and we stopped in all these towns. And I was with Joe Ranft, who Jay Vision was a real key piece of the studio and the story team, and I just fell in love with Route 66. In fact, I took my wife back later, and we flew into Santa Fe and drove the rest of it just because I fell in love with the road. And that movie means a lot to me because of that. But that 5 days of just drinking black coffee and riding on the highway, staying off the highway, staying on the Route 66 was the best time I had in the studio. It really felt.
Jake,
I actually have a moment. Do you remember when we were doing we mix all these films up at Skywalker Ranch, which is George Lucas's facility up there, and usually to kick off the mix, we have kind of a family weekend and a dinner, and everyone has dinner, and we stayed up really late one night, we're having dinner, and here you are at Skywalker Ranch, right? So what's at Skywalker Ranch?
First of all, that alone
is like...
We're acting cool, but that alone is the coolest thing to just go up there.
But then to be there and know that just the lightsabers, Indiana Jones's whip, all of that stuff is somewhere out in this thing they call the Blue Barn, right? So it was really late at night. We're like, let's go to the Blue Barn. Let's try and find the Blue Barn, right? So I wish we had this picture because I know there's security cameras that have the picture somewhere, but we all decided to go, and we were up there. It was me, Jonas, and Pete, and a couple other friends, and we found our way to this door. We're trying to get into this door. We couldn't get into it. We go around the other side. We couldn't get into it. Anyway, long story short, we never got in. However, the next morning, the head of post-production, the guys from Lucas came down and was like, yeah, we found we watched your boys trying to break into the Blue Barn last night. And I have to say that was one of my favorite moments because prior to actually not being able to do it, the thought of being able to maybe break in was one of the most awesome things in the world.
Well, it was just great because we finally feel like we've made it. We're Skywalker Ranch, we're making our film.
Yeah.
But yet, we actually, as professional adults, thought we might be able to break into something. And how is that a good decision?
It didn't work out.
It failed.
Maybe there's a film in the making there.
We've also been very fortunate at Pixar because a lot of other filmmakers or animators are admirable of us as well. They'll come visit. We had Frank and Ollie come at one point before they passed away, which is like these iconic, these heroes of animation that we all grew up like being in love with, coming to our studio and talking to us and just being like, they're there. I remember Mark Davis came and spoke at Pixar around 2000. Mark Davis, all these guys, original 9 old men of Disney, and just going, these are the guys that made the films that we love, and they're right in front of us, and they're talking about how much they like our films, and it's just this. It's almost surreal when people like that come around.
And on that, just because I remember when Frank and Ollie first came to the old building, which was in Point Richmond before we moved to Louisville, and they were walking through right at the end of Toy Story. And John Lasseter, who obviously has done a lot of great things and had lots of Academy Awards and all these amazing things happened to him, that day he talks about because Frank Thomas came out of the screening. Frank Thomas is one of Walt Disney's 9 old men. These are the guys that animated Dumbo
and Ollie Johnston.
And they are heroes. And he walked out. He's an old timer, and he comes out and he says to John, he says, "This place feels a lot like the old Hyperion days of Disney." Oh. And that, John has said, is the best compliment and honor he's ever received. And I always thought it was very cool. That we sort of melted us. We couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys get to sort of take a deep breath and realize that you guys are doing that for a whole generation of young people and old people too? I mean,
that's very nice to hear. I mean, that almost doesn't even compute to us because we love that stuff so much. We look up that. I mean, that's kind of the bar we set.
I mean, I know a lot of the questions today have been, how do I do that? How do I get, I mean, they want to do that. They want to be you guys.
The funny thing is Jonas has been at Pixar 16 years and I've been there 12. And I remember when I started at Pixar, it was right around when Bug's Life came out. And most people, for the most part, unless they were big animation fans, did not know what Pixar was. And I remember, is it a software company? What's this place you're going to work at? And back in those days, you worked at Pixar because you loved animation. It was hard.